Good morning. Here we go. Chapter 9 of Toby. So, Chapter 8, remember, Toby's getting in a bit of trouble, and he might not be able to stay because he's not doing well with his training. That night, I explored the halls and slept at the foot of Dorothy's bed. The next day turned out to be one of those days when Mona did not come in the morning. Patsy found me with Dorothy and took me out to the lawn so that I could pee. Someone came to the door while I was busy doing that. "Patsy, Fran needs to ask you something," the woman called. "Okay, Toby, I'll be right back," Patsy said. "Be good." I wagged. It was nice to hear the word good. I was good. I yawned and stretched, working out the kinks in my back legs and then in my front ones. I thought about the food that would be waiting for me in the bowl. I thought about Eddie and about bacon. Soon I'd be eating. That was such a lovely thought. I wagged my tail. Meanwhile, I sniffed along the grass, then I froze. Something had moved. A nervous little twitch that had caught my attention. An animal crouched in the grass. Now it was sitting perfectly still, but it was too late for that. I knew it was there. Its smell drifted across the lawn to me. Not a squirrel, something different, something interesting. I had to find out more. I started across the lawn toward the new animal, and instantly it turned and ran. It did not run like a squirrel or like a dog. Instead, it leaped. A giant jump took it ahead, and then it gathered its back legs under it and leaped again. That's the incubator. I was so surprised that I barked. Then I tore after it, my claws digging in the soft dirt and ripping up clumps of grass. I needed to catch this animal before it ran up a tree like a squirrel always did. To my surprise, it did not head for the trees. Instead, it bounded right into a bush that grew against the back fence. I followed close behind. Leaves wept at my face, but I could still see the jumping animal dive into a hole in the fence, wiggle for a moment, and disappear. I squirmed forward and put my nose into the hole. I could not fit through it like my quarry had. Not fair. I pulled my nose back and barked in frustration. This was a problem to solve. When Dorothy had lost the little ball, I'd solved that problem by bringing her the rope. Now I had to figure out a new puzzle. It wasn't hard. The hole was too small for me. So, I'll make the hole bigger. I scrabbled at the dirt under the fence with both paws. It was damp and soft, and the hole was bigger in no time. I flung myself into it. It was a tight squeeze, but I wiggled and twisted and shoved with my back legs, and with one last effort, I was through. Now where had that jumping animal gone? I shook dirt off my fur and looked around. No animals. Disappointing. But I did see a sidewalk and a road and new trees that might have squirrels in them, and coming along the road, I saw something else. A group of boys. All of them wearing shorts and t-shirts, and all of them running. Running! Excellent! The boys came closer and closer, and warm wind blew their scent to me. My head and ears lifted. They all smelled sweaty, and most of them smelled happy. But one in particular was familiar. Tyler was running in that group of boys. I dashed forward to meet them, a friend. This was outstanding. I ran in circles around the boys, barking happily. They laughed and slowed down, and Tyler got down on one knee to pet me. He was breathing in big gasps. "Good boy, Toby," he panted. "What are you doing out here?" "Come on, gotta keep moving," one of the other boys said, and they began to run again. "Hey, Tyler, you coming?" Tyler got to his feet, hesitating, and looked down at me. "I should take you back, but I've got to finish this run." "Well, you like running. You want to come?" "Come. I knew that word." I jumped and wagged hard to let him know I understood. "Okay, then," Tyler said. He began to jog forward, going a little faster to catch up with the other boys. "Come on, Toby, stay with me." Running with boys. It reminded me of my days at the ranch, before my feet itched all the time. I'd run and race with my brothers and sisters, and now I was running with people. Running outside in the sunshine, smelling dirt and grass and sweat, people and all the other animals that had crossed our path. Smelling the freshness of air moving quickly, it was fantastic. Sometimes I ran at Tyler's side. Sometimes I dashed ahead to the lead to lead the pack. Sometimes I had to stop to sniff a particularly interesting smell. Once I even found a piece of pizza on the ground. What a day! When I looked up from finishing the pizza, I noticed that Tyler was running more slowly than the rest. He'd fallen behind the group. I raced to his side. He looked down at me as he jogged, smiling for a second, but didn't say much. Maybe he was hot and needed to cool off. "Tyler, you okay?" one of the other boys called back. Tyler waved and nodded and sped up a little so he was closer to them, but he slowed down again almost at once. "Come on," one of the boys yelled. Tyler sped up again, but pretty soon he was far behind. He stopped, bending over to put his hands on his knees. His chest heaved and he pulled in great gusts of air. "Hey, Tyler, you want us to wait?" Tyler shook his head and waved at them. They kept running. I looked at the boys running steadily along the street. I dashed after them. Time to catch up. Then I looked back at Tyler. He didn't move. This was odd. Why didn't Tyler want to run? Running's so much fun. I circled back to him and nosed at his feet. Shouldn't he be moving? Tyler took a few steps and sat down on the curb. "I don't think I'm going to make this cross-country team," he said, wheezing. He had a pack on his back with a little hose that hung from it. He put the hose in his mouth and sucked on it. "You want some water, Toby?" He held out one cupped hand and squeezed some water from the hose. Then he held out his hand to me and I lapped it up. Good dog. He was not panting so hard anymore. "You ran a couple miles, you know that?" He poured me more water. I drank it eagerly. My stomach was reminding me that I hadn't had any breakfast yet. But that didn't matter. The other boys were so far ahead by now. Shouldn't we be running with them? I hurried forward a few steps, paused, and looked back, but Tyler didn't seem to understand that he was supposed to chase me. He sat still. I paced a few steps. I whined, frustrated. Why were we staying in one place? "You want to keep going, huh?" Tyler got slowly to his feet. All right. He began to run again, slowly. His feet seemed heavy. I stayed with him, even though I wanted to dash ahead to catch up with the boys. Somehow it felt more important to be near Tyler. We hadn't gone long before we met the boys coming back the other direction. Then I did break away from Tyler to race up to them, barking a greeting. They laughed. I headed with them to where Tyler was waiting. We all began running together back the way we'd come. All of the boys going slower now, but Tyler was slowest of all. He fell to the rear of the pack quickly, and he stayed there. The distance between him and the runner in front of him stretched out longer and longer. I stayed close at my friend's heels. By the time we got back to the fence, he was not going much faster than a walk. I knew my breakfast was waiting for me on the other side of that fence, so I barked at Tyler to let him know I had to leave. He stopped for a moment, letting the other boys pull even further ahead. "Too bad you can't be on the track team for me, Toby," he wheezed. I licked his hand and wiggled my way back under the gap in the fence. When I got back in the yard, Patsy was calling to me from the back door. "There you are, Toby. I couldn't see you at first. Come on in. I bet you're hungry." Breakfast was delicious. I licked the bowl until it was shiny and drank half of my water. Then I had to consider which friend I wanted to visit first. I decided on Granddad. When I reached his room, he was stretched out in the bed with a book, as usual. I hopped up and stuck my head between his face and the book so he would remember that my ears need scratching. He put down the book, laughed, and did his job. I was tired from my long run with Tyler. My belly was full of breakfast, and I was happy to be with one of my friends. I curled up next to Granddad and settled down for a nap. After I'd been asleep for a while, I didn't know how long, a sound drifted in my ears. "Toby! Toby!" It was Mona's voice. My ears twitched awake before the rest of me. Then I woke up all the way, stood, shook, and stretched. "Good morning to you too, boy," Granddad said. He had put his book down on the bedside table. "You had a good snooze." He scratched my back and I wiggled happily, then hopped off the bed to find Mona. She was standing near the kitchen door talking with Eddie. I could tell from the way she stood, her arms crossed tightly, her weight shifting from foot to foot, that she was worried about something. I dashed up to her and put my front paws on her knees so I could see closer to her face. Then I dropped down because Eddie had the best thing ever in his hand. Bacon. I did sit at once before she could even ask. Then I put a foot up in the air since Eddie usually told me to shake. Then I drooled. Eddie chuckled, but only a little, and not as loud as he usually did. Smart as a whip, he said. Here you go. Good boy. He dropped the bacon and I snapped it up. Nothing was better than bacon. I'm sure going to miss you, Toby, Eddie said. I wagged for my name and for the chance of more bacon. We all are, but Fran makes the rules, and if she says you go, I guess you go. Mona dropped her arms to her side and looked determined. He doesn't have to go yet. Maybe I could still train him. Yesterday was the last day of school, and it's summer vacation now. I could come all day and work with him. You just said how smart he is. Maybe I can get Fran to change her mind. Good luck, Eddie said, and he leaned over to pet me. I licked his fingers, which smelled and tasted so perfectly of bacon. I loved Eddie. I loved Mona and Granddad and Dorothy and Patsy, too. This home hadn't been exactly what I'd expected when I left my mother and Walt in the ranch, but it was happy. I was happy. Come on, Toby, she sounded determined. We did a lot of training that day. The next morning, it was Mona who was there to let me out first thing. I gave her some licks to show how much I loved her, and then I hurried off to check the lawn for more of those bouncy animals. I could smell that a few of them had been around early, but none seemed to be here now. Patsy came out to join Mona, and while they were talking, I head for the fence. There might be a bouncy animal on the other side. No animals except a squirrel who chattered angrily at me from a tree high overhead. I ignored them. I was starting to learn about squirrels. There's no point chasing them once they're high up, but if they're on the ground, they better watch out. I guess the bouncy creature had learned his lesson and wouldn't be hanging around anymore. But down the street, I spotted something that made my head and ears go up. The boys, the running boys. They were coming back, and Tyler was with them. I dashed off to join them and ran in circles, barking with happiness. They laughed but didn't stop running. Guess you're not the only newbie, said one of the boys to Tyler. Tyler nodded but didn't have the breath to answer. This was excellent. New friends, more running. I settled in by Tyler's side. Slowly he began to fall back from the group, just like the day before. I ran a little ahead, then I looked back. Maybe he'd figure out how to play chase me now. He had. He sped up just a little, so he was running not far behind my tail. We ran like that, with the boys ahead of us and the wind in my nose bringing us the good smells from all around. I looked back to see if Tyler needed another reminder. Apparently he did, because he'd stopped. He stood bent over with his hands braced on his knees. I hesitated. Should I go back to him? But the other boys were still running. One of them turned to look at both of us. That boy was telling me to chase him. I leaped forward and barked for Tyler so he would know what to do. Okay, Toby, he gasped. He started running again. We turned around not long after that and headed back. I ran in a circle around the boys to say goodbye and then wiggled through the fence. Mona was standing in the yard looking worried. I raced up to her, panting and wagging. Toby, where were you? I looked all over the yard and didn't find you. I even checked inside. She bent down to pet me. I was glad that she was glad to see me. Were you hiding somewhere? Were you? She put her worried face close to mine, and I licked her nose. Breakfast now? She shook her head and sighed. Weird. And she took me indoors to feed me. Breakfast really is wonderful. And that's all for Chapter 9. Make sure you do your book review. See you at morning meeting.